Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 4 of season 3. Probably said that backwards. Of the AV Experience. I'm your host, Ryan, with my co-host, Jonathan, who is, as usual, much better looking than me. And he has had a great day cleaning that beautiful new car of yours, which has the THX Experience. But have we talked about that on stream yet?
I don't know if we talked about it on stream, but I've sure heard it from you a lot.
Oh, because it's awesome. It's awesome. But before we jump into that, Jonathan and I took a little bit of time, which we haven't done before because we're peasants, and tried to equalize our volume. So are we better today? Or is
really,
it completely and utterly terrible?
I think because we're imbeciles, maybe instead of
Maybe.
Yeah,
that's a given.
We look like we're equalized. I mean, I'm watching the meters.
And when I recorded it, it sounded like we were equalized, but maybe that's why everyone hates my calibrations for audio, is because my ears are just messed up.
That left speaker is so much stronger than the right speaker.
Oh, K-Man's like, late! Man, we started literally 30 seconds ago. I'm not going to put you in detention. Ryan saying, sounds good, actually.
Yay! Woo!
But has it been not good in the past, and this is quality of life change?
I watched a little bit. It was really bad at some point.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was. But, we're imbeciles. We're dumb. We have no idea what we're doing.
We're doing an AV podcast.
Yeah. Doing the AV Experience and our sound isn't very good. What is that about? Man. That's a tick, right? Right there. Listen to these guys. Listen to how they're I never thought, why did I think about that? Oh, wait, it's because we're dumb. Oh, my gosh. Oh, man. But anyway, back to what I said about your car. So for anybody that doesn't know, Jonathan got a new car, and his car literally has the THX intro that will play when you push a button.
One button.
How cool is that? That's awesome. My wife would hate me. She would make me sell it. Absolutely.
I did it on the vacation one time. I don't go crazy with it, or my wife would make me sell it.
The fact that you do it just... Oh, man.
The kids all perked up. I was in the middle of the highway when things were just kind of like, calm and peaceful. We hadn't had any noise for a while. I just went to the menus and pushed that button.
So what crossed your mind when you did that? Like just driving down the road and randomly it comes in, you have that intrusive thought that you're just going to act on, and you're just like, I'm going to push the THX button. And
I really wanted to see the reaction from everybody, and my kids gave it to me. It was pretty fun. They're like, Dad!
But not the kid. I want to know what Megan's reaction was. What was Megan's?
She's not into it.
Did she even make eye contact at that point?
She didn't do anything spectacular. When I got this car and we found that button, Megan was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't get away from this even in the vehicle now." Pretty funny.
She's probably like, I need an annulment.
Oh man. So you were busy the last couple of weeks. I see comments and like, where are you guys? Well, we were both busy. I was on vacation in Yellowstone, and
they thought we died. They were like, "Did you guys break up, or is the stream not happening anymore?" I'm like, "Guys, maybe we didn't talk about it before we left. We just
we mentioned it. We said we were going to be a hiatus for a couple of weeks. But if you don't catch the last stream and all of a sudden there's just true. Then you just don't know.
Well, maybe people don't listen to the very end because they're like, man, these guys' sound sucks. They're trying to tell me about AV stuff and their sound's terrible. Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm out.
So we'll talk. We talked a little bit about Magic Beans last time with... I don't think you've had any more experience.
I don't have any... I mean, I've been out of town, so I haven't revisited it or anything.
So we've got, who was that? Senyo Yanjo Brian. You got to tell me, give me like the enunciation breakdown of your name, because I really do want to pronounce people's names correctly. From Uganda. That's cool.
That is wild.
And then you've got Mosin from Australia, and then Howard from Singapore.
You realize we don't have any Americans in here. They're all, they like our accent. They don't know that we're not smart. They just like our accent.
Ryan's not American. Definitely not. But what have you? So you went to Yellowstone?
Yes, and Grand Teton, and it was probably truly one of the most stressful vacations I've ever been on in my life. And
you were worried the volcano was going to get you, weren't you?
No, if you've ever seen the movie RV with Robin Williams,
yes,
it was like that.
Oh,
without all the zaniness, but all the things that go wrong, like on a trip. Yeah, I mean, just like packed in.
Yeah, but was it worth it? I mean, did you enjoy it?
We did enjoy it. It was like every time we opened the camper, something else was broken. And sometimes, like at one point, we couldn't even open the camper because the door was broken. Things like I brought a tire inflator the neighbor loaned me to fill up the tire, and I thought I'll top off this tire, and it broke, and all the tire emptied. It's like stuff.
What? Stuff so like not only did the inflator not work, the tire continued to deflate.
I mean, like it broke and it let all the air out. Like, this is horrible.
Oh man.
We were in roads in Nebraska, like 2 highways. It's supposed to be one of the most scenic routes in America. So we chose it intentionally. But what I didn't realize is that road is so rough. I should show a little video. I'll see if I can pull it up later for a laugh. It's one of those roads where you're doing this. And with the trailer on the back end, it was really doing this. And I look back in the back and my kids are like jumping out of and their shirt is literally doing this because it's so much so bouncing. Like the little 2 kids, the 6 and 8-year-old, are like bouncing out of their seats up and down. And this went on for like a half hour.
Oh my gosh.
It broke lots of things in the trailer.
Not only the fact that you just said you didn't say something broke, you just went, it broke lots of things in the trailer.
Yeah, I mean, like even the ventilation system, like the skylight vents were dropped like a ½ inch because it just loosened all the screws and stuff in there.
So what really happened, not only did your wife get the THX experience, she also got the subwoofer experience that followed her on her vacation.
The electronics didn't work when we got to a campsite that didn't have electricity. You're supposed to have the RV battery in there, like the marine battery that's supposed to give you water pumps and stuff. We were carrying water with us. We were ready to go, but none of it worked. So Wyoming's hot. I mean, during the day it's hot and it's cool at night. There's no electricity. I mean, it wasn't ideal. There was a lot of things. I'll tell you another little funny story. When this door broke, because of all this bumping around, I assume, 2 of the screws that hold the latch in it started coming out. And one of them was so loose, it just fell out as I was like messing with it. And it fell into like a little piece of trim, basically. It was at the top of the trim. I told my wife, that's in the top. Don't make it fall. We need that screw, like that's required for the mechanism to work. And I went and got a steak knife and I tried to get it out and I couldn't get it. And I handed Megan the steak knife and she was trying, and it fell in the trim. The little screw fell in the trim. So then she was holding the steak knife next to the door and the wind or something hit the door and the door closed and the steak knife slit the screen like for the door. I'm not kidding. There's so much stuff. I could talk about stuff that went wrong for a half hour. And it was my first time pulling a big trailer across the country. We're getting 8 miles to the gallon, which is fun. The brake controller I didn't know how to use. It was new to me. I asked my neighbor how to use it. He said, put it on 5 and don't worry about it. But 5 was so strong, it made me all of us slam our head in the windshield because it slammed the brakes on so hard. So I turned it down to 0 thinking that was probably what it was supposed to be at because that was what the car came with. 0 means the trailer brakes aren't on.
Oh no.
So I didn't know that. I mean, it doesn't even matter. I was using the engine to downshift and stuff until we get in the mountains. And then the trailer's trying to push me sideways and stuff because the trailer weighs as much as the tow vehicle, that whole experience where it tries to shove the back end of your vehicle in front of the vehicle. At one point we pulled into a ranger station coming down a mountain and those brakes were smoking so bad. Before I figured out the brake controller, the brakes on the vehicle were smoking so bad that the kids asked me if the car was on fire. we pulled into the ranger station to pay our entrance into the park and the whole car is like just smoke everywhere, like there's just pouring off the wheels. I got out to make sure we weren't on fire. We weren't.
I got out to make sure we weren't on fire. We weren't. The fact that you had to say that.
That's later. We never caught fire.
I'm glad that you didn't catch on fire. Now I'm just imagining the trailer burning down and you just looking at your wife and hitting the THX button.
No doubt. Oh man! At one point, I was trying to figure out the brake controller, so I'm trying to do it on the fly, like figure it out. At one point, I'm going down a mountain with a 9% grade where they have all the warnings, like caution, use low
And
gear.
you have no.
And I had to accelerate to go faster than 30 miles an hour. I was giving it gas to go faster than 30 miles an hour. I'm like, this is horrible. Something is very wrong.
Something is wrong.
And I couldn't.
I'm accelerating going downhill.
I can't accelerate going downhill.
Oh, so I'm using the gas
Yes,
to accelerate to go downhill.
I have to push the gas to go down this mountain faster than 30 miles an hour.
Oh, my face hurts.
And the other dumb thing was, like, at one point the trailer brakes were like, I guess I was a used trailer. They're kind of crotchety. I was going up a little incline, not even that big of an incline, and I put on the brakes to stop. And when I couldn't get the brakes off, they were like stuck on. so I'm like, I put it in first gear, and I'm like, all right, I just overpower them. I'll get it moving again. The Lincoln Navigator foot pedal is to the floor. There's no more gas left to give, and I cannot get it to go forward.
Good brakes, then. At least they work.
I'm just thinking, Megan and I were thinking, like, we just got to sell the car and the trailer. This isn't for us.
We're gonna die. Something's gonna catch on fire. It's. Oh.
All right, one last story. And I have many more, but this is not what this is about. But one last funny story. So we pull into Grant Park in Yellowstone, and we tell them at the desk that we have a 27-foot trailer. The spot they give us, you don't reserve it in advance. They just give it to you when you get there. Like, you tell them what size, and they give it to you when you get there, based on their openings. The spot they gave us, there wasn't enough clearing for the trees, so like the tree branches and stuff were hitting the AC and the vents and all that kind of stuff up there. And then there was lodgepole pines, and it was like a little C. Like, if this is the main road in there, it's so narrow. There's like a little C pull in that you pull in with your trailer. It wasn't long enough nor wide enough for our vehicles. Like, I don't think it was even possible to make that turn in there. So it was one of those things, like, again, out of Robin Williams' RV, where all the neighbors had come over, and they were all trying to help me, like, navigate in there. It was like 9:30 at night, so it was dark. Like, 4 different people were giving me directions, and the directions were conflicting. Like, stop, no, go a little bit over to the left. It was like, it was so stressful. I just wanted to push a button and be home. Like, I'm so done with this. I don't want to mess with it. I went down the wrong way 3 times. A ranger was trying to help me go down the wrong way. He went down the wrong way with me. It was literally something for the books.
But the important part about all of this, though, is that you're going to remember that.
Oh, yes, for the rest of my life.
Yes. And your kids are going to remember that. And that's going to be something you're going to talk about.
Maybe not in a good way.
No, you're going to talk about that, and you're going to look back about it, and it's going to be tragedy that you caused, that you experienced together. No, you didn't cause it. But, man, what a time.
Yes.
I'm glad you didn't burn up in a fire.
Yes.
That's important.
And we saw some cool stuff. There's some, I mean, have you been to Yellowstone? It is really cool.
I have never been to Yellowstone. That is, I do want to go.
And then we went to Grand Tetons for a couple of days after Yellowstone. So that's a nice trip.
We'll probably go next year. My wife decided that we were going to go to the Bahamas.
Yes, I've never been.
I'd never been either. And we went to the Bahamas.
Was that, that's what you did the last couple of weeks?
That's what we did.
Okay.
So that's where I was last week. And not this week, but the week before. We were there for a week. And I don't usually like the beach because I get really bored. I don't like sitting around doing nothing. I need to go do stuff. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I really enjoyed about the Bahamas was I could go do stuff. Like we'd go snorkel. There was no us sitting on the beach, which I was very happy about because I hate that. I feel like why am I sitting on a beach providing myself with cancer when I could just go be doing something? So we spent a lot of time snorkeling. The resort we were at had a water park. The kids loved that. Did a bunch of expeditions and went out on the reefs and did snorkeling out there and got caught in some thunderstorms out on a 24-foot boat outside of Bahamas. So that was an adventure. But we really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I don't understand quite how people can do that like every year because I feel like it'd be the same thing every year. But it was good to get away. I enjoyed that. I don't have any.
So did you fly out there or take a cruise ship or what was
No, we flew. I will not get on a cruise ship.
Do you have a bad experience with a cruise ship?
No, I don't really like people to begin with, and being stuck on a boat with people is a personal nightmare. Like there's no way. There's no way that I would be able to do that. Confined space, thousands of people. It just sounds bad. Volume is balanced, Ryan. Just don't shout. But that's half the fun. I need to put a compressor on my microphone. That's something that I need to do. Maybe there's one that I can find in the Restream stuff. I can ask them afterwards, but we'll figure it out. So that's what we did, and then we came back, and now I've been doing the Artisan Tour. So the Artisan Home Tour. It's like the Parade of Homes, but it's the big houses. So we did all of the AV in one of the houses that's on the tour. So we've been out there for the past couple weekends doing the whole sales thing. So that's what I've been doing all weekend. And then it was my grandfather.
So I don't know very much about that, Ryan. Tell me more. Like it's is it like homes that people own or that are sharing out?
No,
Like
so are you familiar with Parade of Homes? So Parade of Homes is like new homes that get put up in it's like home builders wanting to showcase what they do. Mm-hmm. And they're for sale a lot of times, or they're the models in neighborhoods and stuff. And the Artisan Tour is that on steroids. So instead of there being hundreds of tour houses in this area, there's 15 houses, and they're all like big houses. So this house that we did all the low volt for, so distributed lighting, media area, golf simulator, AV or automation, outdoor speakers, distributed audio, all that stuff. The house is like 8,200 square feet, and I think its for sale price is $5.5 million.
Woo.
So the house is insane. Like the house, it's got a waterfall on the pool. The hot tub has like 4 side infinity edge that heats the pool that comes down. It has this house, the pool house, like it's not like a full house. It's like a bathroom with storage. The bathroom that is in this house is nicer than my master bathroom. The kitchen island in this house is like 16 feet across.
Whoa.
And 10 feet deep. You cannot clean the center of this kitchen island without crawling onto this kitchen island.
That's kind of weird.
It's a gorgeous house, and it's very open. With how open it is and how large the kitchen is in the living room, it makes sense, because if the island was smaller, it would get dominated by the space because of how open and tall the ceilings are. It's a cool house, way outside of what I would be able to do, but that's where I've been all weekend. So it's a cool experience. Kudos to my partner Tony for organizing that whole thing and doing that house. So,
and you're getting ready to go to Cedia in the next couple weeks. We are going to
Cedia. Yeah. So Cedia is
5th, 7th.
I will be out there the 1st through the 7th. So I'll be out there for a week, and we have to build the Chernobyl room, which I enjoy doing. I like spending time with all those guys building the room, and then we do Cedia. Tony gets to go around and do the whole Cedia thing. I'm stuck at the Chernobyl booth. But you were talking about maybe going.
Yeah, I asked quite a few people, and I didn't get a single yes.
Nobody wanted to go?
My daughter and I are teasing the idea of still going out there, because we could fly out there for like $160 a ticket.
Ask Bob. I bet you Bob would go.
Bob. I put a note in the Kansas City thread and asked if anyone was going.
I don't think Bob's really on there. Do you have his number?
I do.
You should ask him. I bet you he would go.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. I mean, you're welcome to go under my business name. I don't know what the cost is, but we can look into that for sure. I've never gone as a participant. I've always gone as a vendor, so I don't know what that side is. I mean, I've walked around and stuff, but I've never had to sign up.
Yeah. I've never been at all, so it's just kind of something that'd be fun.
So, enough about us. Topic. You came up with this topic. Question of the day. What is your favorite 2-channel or spatial music to listen to or demo? You have a lot of spatial.
Yeah, I'm more the spatial side, and you're more the 2-channel side, I think, if it boils all out.
Yes, I would agree with that. I do like me some spatial, though.
Mm-hmm.
But Chad, I want to hear about what your favorite is, too. So if you got a favorite that you think everybody should listen to, drop it in the chat.
I think I could probably just use, because I have literally probably 100 different spatial audio songs saved that were a top tier, like super tier, I would say. Um, and I have them in different playlists, and probably some of the ones that rise to the top. I'll
Sorry.
just give you a few, and I'm not sure the best way to do this because it's maybe if I share my screen, is that easier to do it that way, or just rattle off a few?
No, I think you could share your screen.
Okay, let's do that. So we'll do a share screen and then entire screen, and it's going to look weird for a second here, but I'll get it dialed up. So tell me if this shows. I can't see it anymore. I just have the Apple
It's
iTunes
really
stuff.
small. Can you zoom in?
I cannot, but maybe I could just share the application instead.
That would probably be a good idea. And then make the application smaller. Would that work?
If I knew how to stop sharing. Okay, so we'll try share screen, and we'll just try a window instead. Does that make any difference?
That's better. Can you make the window smaller? Does that help at all?
I will change the size and see what happens.
There you go. That helped. Yeah, it got bigger.
Okay, so this is some of my probably my absolute favorite Atmos stuff, and I have Atmos music on Amazon Fire Stick and through Apple 4K TV.
Jonathan's gone down a very deep rabbit hole with this. I remember when you first were getting into it and you're like, this is okay. And then you're like, this is amazing. And you've never come out.
Yeah,
We've lost
I've
him.
probably been in it since maybe 2.5 years at this point.
Mhm.
And early on, there was a lot of stuff that seemed like it was AI mixed, and it ended up oftentimes not being better than like Dolby Surround Up Mixer with from 2 channel.
Mhm.
Like there was weird stuff happening. I think as this has gained popularity, there's actually like professional mixers in there doing the work now instead of like just AI, and it ends up being quite a bit better than Dolby Surround Up Mixer if it's done right. And there's a lot of stuff that's like on par with a good Dolby Up mix, but there's a lot of stuff that like in these song playlists I have, they're just spectacular. And
Oh,
these are
they're
some of
really
my
good.
favorites. So this Boom song is, and I'll just give a brief like 15-second summary of each because these are some of my favorites. So I'll just talk to them briefly. This Boom song, it has the sound go around the room, and they even at one point break down and just like start spiraling around the ceiling and getting bigger and bigger. There's really nice heavy bass. It's just a fantastic. It's short, 2 minutes long. It's a fantastic show of Odyssey. Tom Petty, you don't know how it feels, is just excellently mixed. The bass has high impact. It feels wonderful. There's kind of some nice guitar riffs coming from the overhead sounds. That's not out of place. It's just mixed really nicely, and it's a classic track that just sounds all the much better for being Atmos. Location is a neat song with a lot of kind of like electronic sounds that are coming from around the room. Um, Khalid does a lot of kind of modern electronic or dance music. This is a really neat kind of slower version of that kind of music. It's worth checking out. Be Like That is a fun song for bass. I'm not even sure it's that much Atmos, but it's just got as much bass as about any song you can find. And it sounds really, really good. Like they did a great job on mixing it. Dreams is another old song by Fleetwood Mac that the mixer on did an astounding job. Like the track sounds so much better than it did originally. It's almost like it was remastered in today's modern world with new everything. I mean, it's just wonderfully done. Imagine Dragons Sharks is a lot of fun. It's a super clean track with a lot of surround actions going
I
on.
really like that track.
Yeah, Imagine Dragons has so much good Atmos music, like hard to even point to the best one because there's so much good stuff out there from them. Maroon 5, Girls Like You is a lot of fun. The vocals are fantastic. It's just really, really clean. Like all these songs aren't necessarily the most specific, like individual, like motion around the room or anything, but just probably some of my most favorite, most clean tracks that just sound so good. You're like, all right, this is next tier. Like stereo never has sounded this good. That's my opinion. And then there's a new album out by Pink Floyd, not a new album, but a new mix that came out maybe even 6 months ago at this point. I guess time has passed, but some of the tracks on there are fantastic. Time's one of them. The clocks ringing around the room to start it up. The
That is
alarms
a really
going
good
off.
one.
It's just stellar. And let me make this a little larger and I'll show you. Like I have these. I'm not going to go through all these, of course, but I just have so many different Atmos playlists. A lot of these things have a lot of different tracks on them that I've just found to be super. And I'm not talking like I don't even save them if they're just normal Atmos tracks. Like if it sounds like Dolby Surround, I won't even bother.
Now, on the topic of this, Jonathan, Howard Wang asks, is there any difference between spatial audio and Dolby Atmos?
So spatial audio is Apple Music's term for Dolby Atmos. Like they're using Dolby Matte, but it's Dolby Atmos. It'll register on your receiver as Dolby Atmos. It'll be upmixed to Dolby Atmos. They have a variety on how it's mixed, and we've talked about that on different podcasts before. Some of it is only mixed for 2 ceiling channels. Some of it is mixed for 4. Some of it is mixed for 6.
Same as movies.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get different exposure on that type of thing based on your locations and so forth. I personally think like this has replaced my go-to. Like instead of showcasing movies to start with, I will showcase music. It's that good. I will showcase music in my room when people come over, guests who have never been here before, other enthusiasts off the forum. I'll start here because it's like, to me, this is the best that Atmos has been. Even better than a lot of times better than the Dolby first party Dolby Atmos tracks that you can get off the Blu-ray disc. They're first party from Dolby themselves. just fantastic. So like if I kind of do this in order, it's kind of like this is timeline based. Like when I first got into this is the stuff that I started finding. And then as I've gotten to the more newest one, like Atmos 7 is my newest stuff that I found. There's a thread on AVS forum, like Dolby Atmos song of the day that's worth checking out. People are kind of sharing some of the stuff they find that's neat. I found some orchestra stuff the other night that somebody recommended off the forum. Some of that is really, really fantastic off this album. It's an album that's let me see if I can make it larger so you can actually see it. I don't want to play it though. Stop, because I'm going to get a copyright strike. I don't even know how to show the album, but it's basically, this is like Dolby Atmos orchestra stuff. And then, like there's like this Hoist the Colors from the bass singers. It's just a cappella stuff that they mix the voices super well. There's drum beats coming from everywhere. There's just so much good stuff. I really encourage you to check it out. And Dolby Atmos, the price of entry for it, I'll stop sharing here, but the price of entry for it, you're going to be looking at either buying a Fire Stick or having an Amazon Music HD subscription. I think that's like $9 a month, but you can also do some of the other options that are out there that are from different streamers, but that's kind of the cheapest way to get into is Amazon Music. I personally think Amazon Music's selection is not as good as Apple TV's selection. So to get Apple TV, you can't play it through PC. So you got a little bit more expense. Rather than just $9 a month, now you got to buy an Apple TV. Apple TVs are $100-ish, $150, depending on which model you buy. More RAM or less RAM or system storage, I should say. And then your Apple Music service is $11 a month for the music service. But they have and it's expanding so much. It's like once a week they release a whole bunch of new tracks, all kinds of genres, any kind of genre you can imagine, remaking lots of old stuff like 1950s, 1960s music. Anything you can imagine, they've mixed. And some of the neatest stuff isn't even like mainstream stuff. I've stumbled across stuff that's stuff I wouldn't even normally listen to. Like the tracks are so old and so distorted, they're not very fun to listen to stereo anymore. And they've redone them and remastered them in such a way that they're amazing to listen to again. Aretha Franklin, for instance, there's a couple of tracks with her in a old church singing. I don't really care about that kind of music personally, but I love it in Dolby Atmos, and it's some of my favorite stuff. Like it's like you're in an old Southern church and everyone's singing, and there's hooping and hollering and clapping going on, and there's balcony stuff happening. There's people, singing above you. It's like it's emotional. It's so good. Fantastic. So if you haven't checked out Dolby Atmos music, spatial audio music, you're missing out, man. That's like so good.
It is really good. It's a totally different experience, and I won't say it's better or worse than 2-channel. It's just different. Mm-hmm. And if you've already got the Atmos set up or the surround, even if it's not Atmos, set up in your theater or your media space, you might as well take advantage of it if you haven't tried it already. If you haven't done it yet, it is worth experiencing. It is that cool. So before we jump into the 2-channel stuff, Christian has dropped 2 super chats, and one of them is for $10 USD. Thank you very much. I saw the TCL 150-inch the other day. Wow. With TCL committing to affordable 130-inch mini LED and a not-so-affordable 150-inch in the next couple of years, we're going to start seeing TV-based home theater.
150-inch. I didn't even hear that.
I didn't know that.
Wow.
And his next super chat, $5 USD. Thank you again. Can we use 2 LS12000s or an NZ7 together to double the light output for large screens, 180 to 200 inches, like they do with commercial projectors? It's funny that you bring that up because Jonathan,
almost like a plant.
Yeah, we're going to get to this. Let me talk about the 2-channel stuff first, and then we will come right back to this because Jonathan actually just did some of this with Ryan Kramer, who is also in chat, with 2 LS12000s on a 220-inch screen.
180 or 200.
180. Okay.
Something like that.
All right. So let's talk about 2-channel real quick. So Anthony says it's better than 2-channel. It's not.
I think it is.
Well, it's a different experience. It depends on what you're trying to get. I think you may these may be
fine. There's going to be personal preferences. Like I have no problem with you saying it's not. But
this may be fighting. These may be fighting words, right? I think Jonathan knows where this is going to go.
Yeah,
but I think you can get away with a little bit more on the spatial stuff than you can in 2-channel, especially in a system, right? So it's like what we talk about with movies and trying to do a comparison of what a movie sounds like against 2 different audio processors with, optimizer versus Dirac or different room EQs or however you're doing it. I think it's the same way. And with spatial, you can potentially get away with a little bit more, positive or negative, than you can with 2-channel because there's less to focus on with 2-channel. I think 2-channel may be a little bit more intimate, maybe. I don't know. I like them both. This isn't me saying that I like one over the other. I like them both. Some of my favorite 2-channel tracks. Let me see if I can share my screen. It's going to be title. Window, title. There we go. So I keep a playlist of some of my favorite tracks, and I have a bunch, and I just keep adding to it for demo purposes. They're all over the place as far as genre, experience, what they bring. But I'll just talk about some of my favorite artists when it comes to demoing an entire system. Anything Infected Mushroom. Infected Mushroom, they're an electronic music group. They do... Electronic, to me, can sometimes be... There's not much depth to it. Sometimes it doesn't feel like there's a lot of substance. But every time I listen to something from Infected Mushroom, it feels like I'm always on a journey. The song continually changes and morphs, and it feels like you're just being taken along on this experience. It constantly evolves throughout the whole thing. Now, a lot of their songs are very long, so be ready for that. I use Adele's Hello a lot to make sure imaging is in the center, because if she's not in the center, I know I've got some issues with alignment. SPL may be off. I use that quite a bit just for testing different things, because there's not a lot going on when she's talking, so it's very easy to focus. And then some of my other favorites as of right now, this changes quite a bit. I really love Dominique. Most of her songs are just incredible. The intimacy, it's a female vocalist. There's some a cappella stuff. I really like and gravitate some of my favorite stuff of just simplicity. There's not a lot going on. It's just you and the vocalist sometimes. You showed me, Jonathan, some a cappella stuff. It was a little bit more overwhelming with the... Are
you talking about Hoist the Colors, perhaps?
Hoist the Colors.
Yeah.
But that was great.
That's a fun one.
I really enjoyed that. Chocolate Chip Trip is always a classic for listening to imaging and panning as things move around left to right. And it's also great to demonstrate kick drum, because there's that kick that happens starting about halfway through the song that really amplifies all the way through about 3/4 of the song. And it's just a fantastic experience. It's amazing how many people haven't experienced Chocolate Chip Trip, let alone Tool. I mean, Tool, the musical knowledge that these guys have is astounding. And it's also pretty cool to talk to real musicians that maybe on the classical side that really like Tool because of the things that they do in their music that is more of a... shows professionalism, I guess, and a real understanding of what's going on. Let me get rid of this super chat. I forgot that was up there. Let's get rid of that. What else? We're only about halfway through. Sound of Silence. So Johnny Cash's, or the Ghost of Johnny Cash's, The Sound of Silence is another very simplistic, but we're now on the deep male vocal. I think it's important, especially when you're demoing, to not showcase a lot of the same thing. It's important to move between male and female vocals, maybe a higher and lower octave male and female vocal, go through some rock, which if we go up for, where did they go? Polyphia, Playing God and Saucy are great examples of this. They've got the guitar, they've got the bass, and it's acoustic. So there's no vocal in either of these. And I think it just showcases something that doesn't get showcased in a lot of systems or a lot of demo experiences. Cashmere, obviously, is one that a lot of people will know from Marson. There's another Dominique, Phil's Ame. And then you like Ratchets, don't you?
I do. Yeah. I like that one.
Ratchets is a good one for showing some low end. I've started to like this guy, Hugo Cant. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a showcase of your system. It's just high quality music. It's different. I would say, I don't even know how to explain it. Maybe more contemporary. It's all acoustic. There's no vocal. There's no anything in them. And they're just different. I'll call them experiences. You got to listen to him to really know what I'm talking about. But Hugo Cant has a bunch of different experiences that are just a great time to listen to. So this is the experience hole that I went down. You can tell that I get on these rabbit holes of listening to different types of music. And this was that experience rabbit hole. There's Sharks, the 2-channel version. You were talking about the spatial version. Creep is one of my favorites currently by Tom Ball. It is a re-recording of the original song Creep. I can't remember who it was by. It's a totally different feeling. This Creep is kind of creepy in how it's done, but the Ghost of Johnny Cash is more of that deep vocal, and Tom Ball is more of your tenor. It's much higher, but his voice is just amazing, and he sustains some of these notes for a very long time, and it's a fantastic demonstration of intimacy from the male vocal. Heathens is a remastering or a re-recording of that song by 21 Pilots. Really enjoy that one. And then one of my favorites and latest additions that was actually played at M-Wave was the Hugh's Wolf Totem, which is them doing what is the genre and the language that they're speaking?
I don't know what that is, but it's pretty interesting.
I don't know, but I encourage you to listen to it. It's in your face. It's not subtle at all. I mean, it's not expletive or anything, but it's definitely in your face, and it's a great showcase of a system. Not all systems can do that one very well. It can change quite a bit depending on what the system's capabilities are. So that's really what I encourage people to do. 2-channel wise is find some tracks that showcase a bunch of different stuff instead of just focusing on the certain type of music. Even if that bunch of different stuff is outside potentially of your comfort area, I think it's important for you to showcase everything that the system can do instead of just, taking an Expono approach. Magnolia throat music, exactly. Yes, that's what it is. Instead of taking the Expono approach and everybody listening to jazz or everybody listening to classical, it gets boring and it gets old. So showcase what everything can do. And you may find that you discover something that you didn't know you liked. I do that all the time. I didn't realize that I would like a certain genre or a certain artist or something like that. And here I am loving them because I allowed myself to listen to things that I wouldn't normally. And I think you're doing that, Jonathan, too, in Spatial.
It's absolutely true. I explore so much more different genres of music now that the spatial audio is there. And it wasn't that I didn't before. I like almost all genres of music, but there's something else to just like, it's like a whole nother element, a whole nother tier for me that makes me like it. And I've long since thought, like, there's a couple friends that you probably know in your life that have like good taste in music. you'll hear like a playlist and you'll be like, those are interesting songs. Like Doug's one of them from the Kansas City
Mm-hmm.
group, and you're one of them from the Kansas City group, Ryan. Every time I go to your house, you've got songs that I've never heard before, and I'm pretty deep in this space and have a lot of people sending me stuff and so forth. So I enjoy hearing your playlist, like the same sort of thing. I'd say like you and Doug are kind of like the two people I know outside of me that are bringing in new
triangle.
It's pretty neat. And so like I was wondering just casually, with your exposure to these different shows you're going to and stuff, are some of these ideas that you're coming up with, are they coming from those shows? Like, are people introducing them, or is it just your own exploration?
So sometimes they do. Sometimes I'll run into a song that is played at a demo, but a lot of times at demo you run into the same stuff.
Yes, I certainly go to Exponent, and it seems like most of the rooms are playing the same stuff.
It is, and it's the same thing with video demos, right? Movie demos. It's all the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about this a little bit before we go back and get into the super chat question. I think there's really something to be said for the art of the demo.
Mm-hmm.
It is very important to structure your demo in such a way that it takes somebody on an experience. And I encourage people, when you demo something, and I'm guilty of this, of not doing this correctly, everybody is, make sure that you don't just hammer them from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you do that, you're effectively clipping somebody's ears. And you've set the stage for something so loud that it's difficult to recover from. So start here and then build. And build and build and build and build. Or, start, come up, and then come back down, and come up, and then give yourself a break. It's like trying on cologne. You got to reset with coffee beans. Resetting with eating something. Resetting your palate when you're going through and trying different types of food. It's the same kind of stuff. You've got to reset. And that doesn't mean listen to something that isn't good. It means reset on the dynamic range. Don't always be up here.
Mm-hmm.
You got to make sure that you can showcase what's down here. That's a big reason why A Quiet Place is such a great demo when you're getting started, because it showcases what's down here. It also has up here, but it showcases what you can get down in the quiet areas.
I agree in full.
Now, back to the super chat, unless you have anything else to
add. I think this is kind of an interesting comment. I'm going to show it here, and then we'll go to the super chat. But I didn't know that. That's interesting. That old history. I'll have to look that up. I didn't know. Thanks, Ryan.
Wonder why they did that. It'd be funny if it was just a cost perspective, which is amazing how many things came from, I don't want to spend this much money, so we're going to use two speakers.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons also that I really like spatial audio, is simply because it uses a center channel that's anchored no matter where you sit. So if you're listening to dedicated 2-channel and you're got multiple seats and you're not in the center seat, it's not as ideal, right? Because you're hearing the speaker primarily that's closer to you. And so the whole stereo imaging is gone. But if you're listening to spatial audio, all 6 seats in my theater are fantastic because it lights up the center channel, typically for dialogue. Not necessarily. They'll put dialogue in random speakers sometimes. Yeah. There's one thing that's got like a female singing in the front and a male singing in the back, and you're in the middle. So like they don't have to, but they typically anchor it to the center speaker, typically. Mm-hmm. And so then it works no matter where you are in the theater. Like it sounds great. So it's another way to, that I can enjoy it with listening to my daughter, if my daughter's in here with me or something,
Cool. Very cool. Scott Friend says, no country music. Kansas guys. I've never been into country.
You know how I mentioned earlier that I like almost all genres of music? That's one of my lesser favorite ones. There are songs that I appreciate in there. Strawberry Wine, that type of stuff, old, few and far between. I'm not a big country advocate as far as my favorites. Yeah, it is funny. I grew up in a small farm town, so you'd think, but it didn't get
never persisted with me. I grew up on classic rock, so it really never took hold with me. My sister likes country. I just don't. All right. So back to the
old joke. What happens if you play country music in reverse? You get your dog back. You get your car back. You get your wife back.
So let's talk about Christian's comments. First one let's talk about is the large TVs. That is cool, but you lose acoustic transparency. And I just looked at the size of that 150 inch. That wouldn't fit down my stairs.
What's the height on it? Did you keep that up, or is it closed?
74 inches.
That's pretty hard.
That's
navigate any kind of turn.
6'1".
I mean, doorways would support it, but if you have to angle it and stuff because of like coming down the stairs with the angle of the drywall,
wouldn't fit.
Gonna be tough.
Wouldn't fit. No way. And I heard a good expression to this. You date a projector. You're married to a self-emitting display. When you start getting into that size, what do you do with it?
You put it against the wall because you can't bear to throw it away. Like mine back there.
Oh, man. I mean, how do you, if you spend that amount of money on something, one of the things that I like about projectors is if you sell it, they're easy to ship. Right?
Well, maybe. Some of those things are, yours isn't easy to ship. Yours is a pallet.
It's easy to ship than a 150-inch TV.
I'm not even sure that's true. Yours is like 4 foot long by 3 foot wide and 200 pounds.
It fits on a pallet. The TV does not fit on a normal pallet.
In general, consumer projectors are easier to ship than
Yes. Yes. You're not stuck necessarily with a projector. You're stuck with that TV. It may not come out of your basement. You may have to, like the 50-inch that's in the Mad VR Experience Center, it may be there forever. It just won't leave. Can you imagine buying a display and then wanting to replace it and having to sawzall it in half because you can't get it out?
Why is a 50-inch TV stuck in yours?
No, not TV, the sub.
Oh, the sub, sure.
The sub. It ain't leaving.
Well, yeah.
I mean, the driver might.
50-inch. I mean, the driver's 50-inch, but the enclosure.
The enclosure is not leaving. Any thoughts on that? It's cool that they're getting that big, and I can see them in a living room, but that's going to be pain to move.
We talked about this once before. I don't think like a TCL, and there's nothing. I'm not saying anything negative there. I'm just saying I don't think an LED. Let me rephrase it there instead of TCL. I don't think an LED TV or a mini LED or anything, at least at current state, would get me to jump from a projector, but an OLED would. If there was a 130-inch OLED and it was affordable, I would be figuring out.
Would it fit down your stairs?
I have an entrance down here.
Oh yeah.
I have a walkout basement.
Oh yeah.
So I don't even have to worry about that. I would pretty much move heaven and earth to figure out how to get that in here if they're affordable, but they're not going to be affordable. I mean, the OLEDs at 130 inch. Can you imagine how much those would cost?
Yeah, the 97 G4 is still
25,000, 20,000.
It went down to 20.
All right, so
20 grand now.
Inches, you're probably still at 50 or 80,000 if they ever introduce.
Oh, it's probably more than that.
Too much.
You know how the panel lottery that you'd have to play for that, for the manufacturers to get a panel that was that large that didn't have any issues?
Well, I mean, I don't know, but you would be able to do it, right? Because you just keep returning it until you got a good one. That's how.
No, not the end user, the manufacturer. Like getting a panel made that's that large. I think that's a big reason why the price gets up is because it's difficult to do without issues. And the price increases astronomically for stuff like that. But let's jump into the other part of this question because you actually have some firsthand experience with that yesterday.
Yeah.
So Christian's second question is, can we use two LS12000s or NZ7 together to double the light output for large screens like they do with commercial projectors?
So pay attention also to Ryan Kramer's chat comments because he'll be speaking to this as well. We went over to Ryan's house. His name is Chirpy on the forum. He's got a fantastic theater. And I don't even remember, Ryan, I'm sorry, 180, 200-inch screen, something like that. It's a 2.0 ratio. It's huge screen. And he had a single LS12000 as kind of a placeholder, perhaps, to see how that worked and to fill the screen. And it works fine in SDR. It actually does really well in SDR. It doesn't do so well in HDR because there's just not enough brightness for it as a single. So just out of kind of like the back of our mind, we thought, at some point, even like a year ago, this would be fun to like see if we could make two of them work. Like, how hard is it to line up two? And here you go, 200-inch diagonal, 115 gain perf. Any rate, conventional wisdom on that is that you will have trouble doing it. You can't do it. It's difficult to do it. You're going to have issues. It's going to be a headache, and only half of that is really true. It is going to be a headache. but you can do it, and it can work really well. In about 40 minutes time, we got the two LS12000s lined up really pretty well, to the point where, like, when we're watching it, we're all in the room saying this is better than a commercial theater as far as sharpness. So it, like, we got them lined up even in just 40 minutes time, with one of them hanging from the ceiling and one of them on a shelf. The lenses were as close as they could be. The projector's basically touching, which is what you'd need. We got it to the point where, like, before any bass happened and stuff, which would knock it out of alignment pretty quick on the way we were doing it, but to where it was really sharp, really good, like a great picture. Like, you wouldn't know it was two projectors at all, except for it was twice as bright. So yes, you can do it. The
Now,
menus
it wasn't twice as bright.
I'll show you some videos. It's significantly different. It's not just a little different. Like, when you cover one lens and you bring the other one over, like, it looks,
because usually it's half the brightness of the second one is added to the first one.
I mean, that could be true. I don't know the actual physics of it or whatnot, but it's significantly brighter.
Oh yeah,
to the point where it brings the scene to life. Like, where we watched with just a single LS12000 on the 200 screen, and HDR wasn't even really something that Ryan chooses to use because it doesn't have enough pop to it. Like, it looks kind of dull. So SDR, then when we put two projectors up there, we watched some SDR and we watched some HDR, and HDR was as bright as SDR was. Now HDR has pop and is usable. So, like, that was fun to see. I mean, like, everyone there's four of us there. All of us were like, wow, this is working way better than we would have thought.
Now caveat,
multiple caveats.
This is very important for all of you guys going, oh, well, I could do that, right? This is why it's not done very often.
If you're trying to do the alignment, it's a literal nightmare, because we were fighting the darn menus popping up over the top of them each time. You say, all right, I got to move this projector A needs to shift to the right a couple pixel lengths, to get the frames lined up. And as you're doing these things and navigating through the menus, they're constantly popping up on top of each other, because your infrared sensors are so close. You need a way to, like, truly mask one off and on, but you need to be doing it in real time. So it's a real pain in the butt. I mean, what we were doing is basically putting the projector remote immediately next to the IR sensor so it wouldn't get the other one, and it would still pick up the other one. So you'd be only meaning to move projector A to the right 2 pixels, and you'd end up moving projector B to the right. Like, the GUIs were not separate and unique. You couldn't do it because they're the same model and they're picking up the same IR signal. That was bear number one. Bear number two was, and this I think you could solve, but we were using just a shelf, right? A wooden shelf that Ryan had made real fast. Anytime the bass got activated, they'd get out of alignment again. Like, we'd spend a couple minutes getting them perfectly lined up, and then the bass would hit, and you'd go back to the grid after the thing, and the grid would be this far off between the two lines, and that's enough to, like, really mess up the picture, right? So the caveats are, it's very complicated to set up. If you had any kind of pixel, like, let's say you had a lens memory because you had a 235 to 1 screen or 2.0 to 1 to screen, I personally don't think it's even worth it.
That wouldn't even work.
Because I know from having JVC and Epson and Panasonic projectors that have lens memories that those drift over time. Like, small, but they drift over time. They do not stay exactly where you put them. And so, like, a month down the road after you switched it multiple times, it won't be as perfect as when you originally set it. Well, if you have two of those doing that drifting, they're going to forever be out of sync, and you're going to be fighting that. So really, to me, in my mind, the only way you could ever even make that work is if you had a static, like a 16:9 screen, and you weren't trying to juggle aspect ratios at all. Then you might be able to work, and you'd have to rig up some sort of platform that was so solid that it was not going to move with bass or with anything else, basically out of metal. Like, I think you could do it if you made an aluminum shelf, and you joined them by, like, a rod of aluminum, and they were all just firmly mounted, and you had those projectors basically, like, drilled and screw mounted into those shelves where it was like a solid piece and you could shake it and it wouldn't move. I think you could get away with it, and I think it would work really well, surprisingly well. But that setup is
aside from the drifting.
I don't think it would drift if you weren't shifting the pixel resolutions. It shouldn't, right? If you're static set, I don't think it drifts. It shouldn't drift. It shouldn't drift. I mean, if you're running like 150 dB, yeah, it's probably going to drift. But I think
newbie, no stacked projectors for you.
I think 120, 130 dB, because my projector doesn't seem to drift as long as I'm not changing the aspect ratio. Changing the aspect ratio is where I see that it drifts. So we were talking about that on the way home, because Tim and I drove over to Ryan's together, we were thinking how much money, and this is going to be a subjective evaluation, but how much money would you need to save in order to make that kind of complexity worthwhile? That's where it kind of breaks down, right? Because the LS12000, that's a $5,000 projector. You get a little cheaper if you got a friendly dealer, but $5,000 retail. That gives you 3,000 lumens. Not quite. It's 2,700 lumens, but let's just ballpark it. Epson's releasing these new projectors that they've already been announced over in Taiwan. There's one that's got 6,000 lumens, and there's one that's got 10,000 lumens. I don't know what they cost. Those prices haven't been announced yet. But if the 6,000 lumen projector, and it's the same as the LS12000, the same engine, the same motion, 120 hertz, HDR plus, like the whole 9 yards. If that's like 15,000, is it worth 5,000 extra to not have the complexity of having two projectors? That answer is probably for most people, yes.
Yes, and this is what a lot of people don't think about in their media and home theater experiences, is that if things don't work easily, you ain't going to use it. You're not going to use it nearly as much, and if you do, your family sure as heck isn't. Like, think about, to yourself, all of you out there, how many of you guys have partners that won't turn the theater on themselves? Now imagine making that theater more complicating, and it's just not, it's not going to work. So I think that paying to not have to deal with that is a big reason why it's not done very often. And I'm sure there are other issues like uniformity and stuff as you get out to the edges that we're not even talking about right now, because your lens uniformity would have to be identical, and that's
it was surprisingly good, Ryan. I wish you could have seen it. Like, I know you were busy last night, but it was surprisingly good. Like,
I'm nitpicking.
None of us, especially in like 40 minutes. What we did is we went into the pixel grid alignment on both projectors, and we made sure the pixel grid was perfect. You know, where you do the RGB and you're making the so we started there. We had a real great spot there. After we didn't start there. We started with getting the size the same, and then we went to pixel grid alignment, and then we did the fine tuning, and without having them both hung, without having that super secure thing, I'll show you some videos here. Like, let me share screen and I'll show you some stuff. It was remarkable. Again, as soon as the bass hit, it was messed up, but it was remarkable when it was remarkable.
It was remarkable when it was remarkable.
Okay, let's see if I can show you some things. Tell me. I might have to turn out an ATR. Is the color all jacked up? Because I don't think
blown out.
Yeah, Restream doesn't support. This is kind of a mess. Let me stop for a second. Let me turn off HDR, and then it will look better. And then my videos won't look good because they're recorded in HDR. So this might be a failed mission here, but we'll try it.
Failed successfully?
So I turned off HDR. Hopefully I didn't disconnect from Restream.
No.
Okay. This will make it not blown out anyway. Share screen, entire screen, share.
Guys, I promise we're going to get to other questions.
It's so funny that he had that question right, because how could the timing be any better than that? That's like exactly what we're talking about here. Okay, so let me start kind of here. Can you see Sheldon on the ground? No one knows why he's laying on the ground. He's always measuring things by laying on the ground. I only have kid here. Are you seeing my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, this is just some setup things where we're getting the line. This is two of them on the two projectors, and like look how darn sharp that is, Ryan. Like, you wouldn't know it wasn't two projectors. I mean, you can see over here, if this is coming through good on the stream, you can see over here that you can see the texture of the screen. It's not like I've got a bad camera or bad image. It was that dialed in until the bass hit.
Until it wasn't.
Yeah. So, like, you can see the texture of the screen, you can see the, and look how sharp that is. And look, because there's two projectors, you can see it's throwing two shadows. So there's two projectors going, because that's not how one projector looks with a shadow. You'd see a single shadow. So, turn this volume down. This is two projectors playing here. We were having some sort of issue with the receiver. We never figured it out for the night. It was not on YouTube doing 4K HDR. It was only allowing us to go to 1440. So those are going to look strange. But I mean, do you hear someone in the background saying, "This looks amazing"? Like, it was really impressive. Um, here, let me go here, right here. This is a good one. So this is watching Avatar in HDR on two LS12000s. Super bright, super punchy. The skin looked really good. Motion was good. Everything was lined up. I mean, this is me commenting, saying like, even though there's two projectors, this is sharper than like a regular commercial cinema. Like this is really sharp. And then everyone's like in agreement. So yeah, I mean, it was working. Now, at some point in here, we got a display of how covering up. Here it is. So this is covering one lens up. Do you see the punchiness dropping? That's one projector versus two. We're just covering up one of the lenses with a Blu-ray disc. Can you tell the difference, Ryan? Is it coming through on the stream?
Man.
Ryan, are you seeing that? I can't hear you. Is that? Yeah. So I mean, that's how much brightness you were losing, and you cannot, like, I'm looking at it here first party. I know the stream might not even show it as good. I can't tell the difference in sharpness between when it comes and goes. So yeah. Anyway,
it didn't suck.
It didn't suck. There it is with HDR. It was just, I don't know if twice as bright is accurate or not. Maybe like you're saying, it's 50%, but it was definitely noticeably brighter. Definitely noticeably brighter. Stop presentation. I don't know how to stop it. Where's my stop button?
It's in the screen share button. Click it. The monitor with the up arrow. Do you even technology?
Oh, well, it had a little pop-up before to stop it, and now the pop-up's gone. Okay.
Christian, another super chat for this. Is there a specific projector technology that would benefit most? I don't think so, but I am not the end-all, be-all knowing on this.
I don't know, but here's another little interesting thing for this, Christian, is that one of the guys among us that has the most eagle eyes, like his vision is super good, way better than 20/20, and he's always kind of talking about like he can see the pixel grid on projectors and he can see the pixel grid on the screen and like more and all this stuff. He's just
Sheldon.
one that has really it's actually Tim who's got the best eyesight. Tim said he liked it better with 2 than 1 because Epson has a little bit of like a screen door effect because of its pixel size, right? And when we had 2, because it maybe wasn't exactly perfect, but still good enough to look better than it. At any rate, he said it looked better with 2 because he could no longer see the pixel grid at all. Like he's the one that always says Epson, he can kind of see pixel grid. He said couldn't see pixel grid anymore. So that's interesting.
Interesting. And Christian had another question. Is there any audio tech?
Christian, you don't have to pay us every time you make a question, man.
Is there any audio tech that can get us close to AT with TVs, like Sony's center channel tech that allows us to do?
They're working on that.
There's plenty.
They're working on that.
Storm has that capability. Trinov has that capability. There are speakers that try and solve this issue. Ascendo just launched a speaker called the Director that is designed specifically for this application. Now, it's meant for video walls, not TVs. But like the price of TVs, we're going to start to see a trickle down, I think, as this stuff continues to mature. So you can do some stuff with the top and bottom center channel and do some EQ and alignment and things to kind of make this work. There are some compromises that go with that, but there are some speakers from becoming more and more companies that do tackle this head on.
I don't know that you'll ever get what he's really hoping for, though. And if I'm reading between the lines, the hope would be that you could get, like, I would hope for having basically like timbre matches and like exact same sound as your left center or your left right.
Yeah,
that's always going to be an obstacle because it's not the same. I mean, it's coming out of the screen, or it's just not going to be the same as your left right.
That is true. So now to the questions. Peter asks, and I'm not going to start any more questions, guys, because we're trying to keep these short to like an hour, and we're already an hour. We got to go through these questions. Have you looked into Magic Beans? We talked about this a couple weeks ago when we did our last stream. Jonathan did a test with another local Kansas City guy. They didn't dive too far into Magic Beans. They thought they did. and then they realized they didn't, because Jonathan was surprised that Magic Beams was the first room EQ that he ever really liked. And then he found out that he wasn't actually turning off his old EQ and engaging Magic Beams. So he liked it because it was his EQ. There was no
remarkably similar.
It was remarkably similar because it was the same thing. So, no, not yet.
Yeah, I do think, I can't say for sure, but my receiver, my AV10 is acting up right now. I cannot get into the web interface, and I cannot get into the some of the firmware settings things. Might have to do a hard reset, and I'm wondering. Again, I haven't been home, so I don't. But I don't know. Like, I was trying it last night. If I go in to turn on firmware, it just turns off again. I'm automatically up. And if I try to go in the web interface, it's just black. Like, can't get into the web interface at all. And I'm wondering if something we did with that Magic Beans, like, screwed something up on the AV10, because I've never had that problem with it before. So I might be in a hard reset in order to try to figure this out.
Well, and if that doesn't work, let me know and we'll get that warrantied.
Yeah. I don't know, because remember, it's kind of the way we were doing is a little bit of a hack. Like, we're modifying the files that Odyssey provides. We're changing them to Magic Beans files. We're uploading that. I don't know all the ins and outs of that. I don't know if anyone else has a problem. I don't even know what's related to that. It might have nothing to do with that.
Maybe.
But something's changed and not working right on my AV10 right now.
Interesting. So Sasakanth asks, what kind of height speakers does Ryan use in the Mad VR Experience Center? Ascendo wedges or in ceilings? So they are the 12 Pro berylliums. They are not small. They weigh, I think, over 50 pounds apiece. They're large enough, and my ceilings are low enough in the Experience Center that I had to cut holes in the ceiling and then recess them onto projector mounts. But the advantage to that is I can turn them and I can tilt them in any direction at any time. So they are full-size speakers. They're the exact same speaker, just in a different form factor that is on the surround channels. The only other different speaker that is in there, aside from the subs, is the Black Swan Pro berylliums, which are up front. Mosen asks, how to fix rattling sound from the door in heavy bass. I have rattling on my entry door.
I've had that problem.
I think we all have.
In my case, I have a hollow core door down here that rattles real bad. I just use weather stripping, like kind of the triangle-shaped weather stripping stuck in the corner. So now that there's a little bit of pressure to hold the door in place, it doesn't rattle anymore. You can get a solid core door. That will help too, but you might ultimately still be rattling against the latch, depending on how much space you have. But weather stripping is a good way to go, and it's cheap. It costs $10.
Just take the door off. Go no door.
Don't need it.
No door. Nah, Jonathan's got a good suggestion there. MW asks, do people prefer a calibrated image or a brighter image?
You can get in a fight on many threads with that question in the AVS.
You can, but that's because people are delusional and they don't realize what the common man likes. What would you say, Jonathan?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be on the brighter image side, and I'm not going to fault anyone that prefers a calibrated image, but I prefer a brighter image, and I don't want to trade brightness for calibration. Perfect colors are less than brighter image to me.
I think it's you got to find a happy medium, and there is a reason why big box stores put their displays in torch mode. People like color, and they like bright. It's like moth to a flame. They want brightness. If you look at a lot of displays that HDR is actually clipping images in color, people perceive the increased brightness as a lot of times, when it's not done over the top and the whole image clips, as a better image. So I'm going to say that most people, from experience, prefer brighter. I personally like to start calibrated and then deviate from there, but you got to have the brightness overall to be able to do that. Paul Creamer asks, are you guys going to continue M-Wave next year? There's going to be something. What it is, I'm not entirely sure. I'm in discussions with several people and vendors and companies about this. We'll know more probably after CEDIA. But something is going to more than likely happen. Spade asks, what are your guys' opinions of doing full wall with absorption on one side and the other half absorption, half diffusion?
Where did you get that idea, Spade? I think you would hear that one side sounded louder or more open than the other side. And I think you should only be doing something like that if you have an asymmetric room and you're trying to play into fixing that asymmetric sound difference. Like you're fixing a symmetry problem by doing that versus taking a rectangle and doing that with a rectangle.
I would agree. Yep.
And to put a point on it, my room is asymmetrical, and so my seats, my whole seating area for my theater is towards this wall, and this wall is more open. Um, so I'm not centered in the room. This wall was sounding like, even though my SPL trims were saying that I was hitting the same trims from every speaker, that left side when I'm sitting here, so I'm facing this way, that side of the room sounded louder to me sitting in my chairs, even though the SPL didn't say that was the case. So what you're talking about would be something to like fix something like that. So what I did is apply a bunch of absorption, the 3.5-inch foam up there, acoustic foam, in that pattern that made that wall basically back up. So you can think of that as like absorption and diffusion, because where the foam, it's dome shaped, where the foam is thinnest, it's going to reflect a lot, and where it's thickest, it's going to absorb more. That made that wall feel further away and got rid of that feeling in my head that that wall was too close, that there was more sound reflecting off that wall. So something like that would be more in line with what you're talking, I think.
Finster asks, do I understand you don't EQ your near field subs and they get the raw signal no matter how good or bad? Time align and reduced level only, so only need to run room correction for the front subs.
So why does he say no matter how good or bad for raw signal? You mean, is that meaning just in relation to like what it would measure on a graph?
Yeah.
I guess that's what he's saying. Yes, yes. I think that's important. If I take a near field measurement in my main listening position from my near field subs that are right there, and I think I need to apply EQ, I would be playing all kinds of EQ, because the mic is off axis. It's not like it's a foot away and it's 2 foot up, from the sub center of cone or something. It's not in an ideal placement to do that kind of measurement. So I'd be playing all kinds of EQ that wouldn't be right. And that would not only probably interact with the room poorly uh, because what I'd be applying isn't appropriate, but it would also EQ the feel to be very wrong. So you don't want that at all. Just let it be a sealed sub, let it be natural. It'll interact with the room just fine. And you won't have any like weird, basically elevated amount of tactile bass and reduced amount of tactile bass that would be applicable to applying EQ that would feel wrong. So you definitely want it non EQ'd. I didn't say that the most like fluid way, but I think I got the point across.
Yeah. Mosin asked another question. Is it possible to make a video how to calibrate your speakers manually using Rue? I think there's quite a few on YouTube on how to use Rue.
I use OmniMic.
And I don't think you're going to find one video that does everything, maybe from a basic sense, but REW is a deep and very vast rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. So it's going to take some time to really understand how to use it. I still don't understand fully how to use it. There's a lot of tools and things to be able to do in there. But YouTube is your friend on that one.
Yeah, and I would also say that you can probably apply your EQ without having... I have to be careful here because I know there's people on both sides of the fence. But I think you can apply your manual EQ to taste without doing REW. I would do REW or OmniMic instead of doing the EQ because of my beliefs on EQ. I would use REW or OmniMic to help you place your speakers. So as you put your mic in your main listening position and you move your speaker 6 inches to the left, 6 inches back, 6 inches forward, you try to find, without any EQ applied, you try to find the best placement. Where is it most naturally flat at my main listening position? And then at that point, after I get it to where I think it's the most flat it can possibly be with a frequency response plot, then I would apply EQ to taste at that point versus EQing. Again, this is going to get some people up in arms, but I'm not one that says that you should EQ for that center speaker, because we've talked about this before. Let's say you need a 10 dB boost at 250 hertz in your room at that main listening position. The seat to the left or the seat to the right almost certainly does not need a 10 dB boost at 250 hertz. And so you're hurting, unless you only care about one seat, you're hurting the other seat experiences by doing massive EQ for a single seat. So that's why I say use it to help you do the placement that gets you the most natural sound in your seats, and then apply EQ to taste from there that would apply to all seats. That's my position.
The appropriate way to do this is do as much as you can to not need room EQ
Or to
or
minimize
EQ, and then go down that pathway. Because EQ is a compromise, right? So anything you're doing is going to compromise something else. So I always try and do as much as I can, as Jonathan stated, before, and then get to the EQ portion if needed.
And if you only have one seat, you probably don't care about any of that. EQ it to your heart's content. But if you have multiple seats, and especially multiple rows and stuff, less is more. You want to minimize EQ as much as possible. So,
well, okay.
Specific granular PEQ steep shelf filter type stuff. Let me say that. You can do general EQ. You can say, I want to do...
MW's right. You need to do this. Like, this needs to happen.
Oh, yeah.
But applying filters is what we're actually talking about.
Yeah, like I'm specifically, when I'm talking, and to make it very clear, I'm talking about applying very distinct small PEQ bands that are very sharp, very steep, and they're very narrow bandwidth. That's what you need to avoid. And some people think that that's what they want to do. You want to apply very broad over a large range of frequency, very moderate over a small dB range amounts of PEQ bands. That's my preference. I think it works better for all seats.
Yeah, maybe. Sasakanth says, would JBL CBT70s work as an outdoor speaker for a backyard?
Yes. Heck yeah. They're waterproof. Not
kind of what they were designed for.
Submerge them, but they're designed for outside use.
Yeah. Anything else that I think we should deal with?
I haven't even caught up on the chats. So is there anything else started? Did you make it through all the starred stuff?
Made it through all the ones that I starred.
I'll talk about this real quick, because this is an interesting thing that Ryan brought up the other night. Chirpy. Ryan brought up that some of the business class, and you may know this also, Ryan, that some of the business class projectors have basically like a feature where you can use 2 business class projectors and push a button and it will auto sync to the pixel level, like the picture, so that they can overlay. And he said that's in the consumer business space. Why is it not in the home theater space? And that's a good question.
I don't have an answer to that.
I don't either. I mean, it seems like he said that feature set is probably fairly inexpensive. They're probably
some of the business projectors actually have dual lamps built into them. I don't have a good answer for that. Maybe it's because the image fidelity doesn't matter as much. I don't know.
He was just thinking like, hey, if you could add that feature, and let's be frank about this. I have a $200 Apollo projector that some Chinese company sent me to review, that you can push a button on the top, set it anywhere in the room at any angle, even off thing. It'll do the keystoning. It'll do everything. It'll fix it. You push that. That projector costs $200, and it does a remarkable job at that particular function.
Wow.
So if you can build an entire projector with audio, with Chromecast licensing, with this feature set for $200 and ship it across seas, it can't be that expensive of a technology to implement. So Chirpy's idea was like, hey, make the LS12000 cost $250 more, include that button that does it, align it to the pixel grid, even like it just does it automatically. On both projectors, you push the button and you walk away. And, that's $500 total extra cost, but you're not messing with all that. All that troubleshooting we were talking about earlier that's frustrating is just fixed. Why not?
Yeah.
Man can dream, right?
All right, so there was one more question. Finster actually asked this again. So with near field subs, there's no need for any rear far field subs, correct? No, that's incorrect. I think in an ideal situation, you would still benefit from rear subs.
So he's saying rear, not far field in general. You still think that's incorrect in that way? So he's saying, I'm assuming he says we have front far field subs. Do I need rear far field subs?
You don't need them. You'll get a better frequency response.
More subs in general make
Yes.
some more natural frequency response and more native
Yes.
frequency response to the subs native content in
Yes.
the room.
Yep. So it will be better to have rears, more than likely. It could theoretically be worse depending on the room and placement, but in most cases, having rears is better. I think the more subs you can have, regardless if you have near field or not, as long as they're properly aligned and you've taken care to calibrate them, your overall experience will improve. Last thing, let's talk about what did you think about the calibration video that just came out? Ryan Kramer brought it up. That Chris, did you watch it?
Are you talking about Youthman's calibration
Yeah.
video? I'll hold my tongue.
Okay.
No, I mean, I think I messaged Michael on the side and asked him. I just said, like, I feel like Michael, knowing him for a year and a half, is of the same kind of spirit that I am in that regard, that he likes a bright, poppy image. And you could tell after the calibration that it had taken a lot of the brightness away, like significant amount of the brightness away.
But he said that in his thing that he didn't lose any brightness.
But he did, looking at the before and after images.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question he did. Maybe on the peaks he didn't, but on the just general rank and file images he
Well, the part of him not losing brightness was really weird to me, because usually when you calibrate one of those projectors, you're losing like 20% of your brightness. Yeah. Typically when you calibrate, because if anybody doesn't know, when you calibrate a display from the manufacturer, a lot of times your colors for each color, it's all the way up, right? So what ends up happening is you can't add. There's no adding more. It's cutting. So you have to cut typically to the lowest common denominator. In this case, let's say it's red. I have to cut everything else down to equal red so that everything is equal. And there's more to it than that, but that's a simplistic way of talking about it. There's no adding. There's only removing. So for them to say that you're only removing X, it's possible, I guess, but I just want people to know that that's not a typical outcome. Which, yeah, lumens, you're going to lose output because you're not outputting as much light because you're cutting that color. So obviously Grave Danger says he needs 2 projectors instead of 1. Got to dual stack those NZ800s.
So this little picture is exactly, my phone syncs to my computer, so that's how I have this picture. I was sending this to in text message saying, like, here's the before and after picture from his calibration. Like, I mean, call me crazy, but I'd rather see a little bit more red in the monkey and actually see some details on the monkey's fur.
Theoretically, that could be due to exposure and stuff on the camera.
Well, I mean, it was picture after picture after picture. Now, again, we're not there, so that's fair. But, like the before and after, I don't know. To me, looking at that picture on my screen, there's no way I'd make that trade for a little bit more accurate colors to lose that much brightness. But I'm not there in person, so that's all I can say is that's what I see on my side.
Hopefully it gets rectified, or it's right. I don't know. You do bring up a good point. We're not there. And I think it's important for others to realize that you're not there. And a camera can mislead you. Right.
And does mislead you on laser projectors. Like the JVC in both those looks like wonky, but I promise you in person, those JVCs don't look that wonky. Like the grass looks like it's neon, some sort of crazy otherworldly neon green. JVCs don't look like that. So in Youthman's video, the camera's doing some weird things to it.
Yeah, and that's normal. I mean, we run into this in MadVR all the time. It's very difficult to do A/B comparisons because the camera is not your eyes. How the light sensor and stuff in the camera reacts to certain things is going to be different depending on what it's seeing. And if you're not very, very, very careful, you can create a misleading situation. So again, not saying that's what happened. I'm using this as a generality that when anybody does this and they see comparisons, that you need to take it with a grain of salt in video, because you're looking through another device, not through somebody's eyes. Anything to add?
I'm starting a couple more here because I'm just making my way through the comments. You can pick them up. I'm still reading through the comments. I don't know how you keep up with that. I'm not able to keep up with that. you see the two new ones? You can bring them up. We'll talk.
Chat AV asks, is it just me or is it distracting when you can see the speakers? I can't help but feel like the speakers take over versus the TV. I would agree with that. You can't see your front speakers. Jonathan.
No, mine are behind the AT screen. I actually like seeing the speakers, and I don't think they take over for me, but I run them at 5% brightness. We've talked about that before, too. So this is 100% brightness. They don't look like this when I'm watching a movie. I turn them to red, and I turn them to 5%. And
he actually makes them go RGB, so they just cycle colors.
They're kind of... No. They're kind of just in the background, but they're there, so you kind of... I don't know. I like it. Personal preference.
To each their own. It's subjective. I personally think that now, having gone to a room where you can't see any of the speakers aside from the 50 behind, I think it's more immersive because you don't have anything to take you out, right? I find myself falling into it more easily. I did fall into it with my previous room, but now in the Experience Center, it's easier, I think. That's a great question. New Lily Cinema asks, what would you upgrade first? Going from 4 Aura bass shakers to Butt Kicker Advanced, roughly $1,300 with an amp, or 120 silver ticket WVS? What's WVS?
Some sort of screen. So he's getting a 6-inch screen.
To 126 Seymour with masking, roughly $2,500.
You could ask 10 people and get 10 different answers.
Yeah. Well, what's your answer?
I personally like tactile bass. I don't think a 6-inch screen would make me want to give up my tactile bass, so I'd be going with the butt kickers, personally. Do both. Just take time, Hey, plot it out 5 years down the road.
I'd try and go with more of a 6-inch upgrade. I don't know if a six inches would get me to move. Unless there's some other distracting factor that's happening with that screen. I agree with Jonathan that I'd do tactile first. Do you start anything else?
I'm still reading through the comments. So someone asked, how did we split the signal for the 2 Epsons? It was just going through the AV receiver. They have an HDMI out, sub, like main and sub, and we just made it do that. Just sub our main output and sub output 1 and 2. Okay.
I think that's it.
I think we're caught up. I'm all the way through the chats.
Okay.
Hey, Christian, thank you so much for all the super chats. We can't say it enough. Thank you. That's nice.
It is much appreciated.
Yeah.
And by no means does anybody feel the need to do that. You can just ask questions. We do sometimes miss them, but don't feel like that it's ever required to super chat to ask a question. It is appreciated, though, immensely. So don't think that it's not.
And also, I want to bring this up. Papa Lock, one of my friends, Austin, last time we podcast, there was a $500 super chat that came in.
And that was real.
And I didn't react that strong to it because I thought like it was a mistake. Like I contacted him afterwards and said, hey man, let's figure out how to get you that money back because I assume you meant to do $5 or something and the decimal got messed up. He said, no, I intended to give that to you guys. I appreciate what you do. He goes, I've watched you guys do this over the years, and it's, you're an asset to the community. I wanted to thank you. I was just blown away by that. Right. That's unbelievable. So thank you, Austin. Like
I thought it was a different currency.
Yeah, that was way beyond that.
But it's one of those things that happens and you don't know how to react to it. So you don't react to it. And sometimes I recognize that can be perceived in a negative light. And I want to make sure that that we emphasize that it was hugely appreciated.
Absolutely.
It was just in that particular moment, Jonathan and I were like, that has to be a mistake.
Yeah. I mean, I had zero doubt in my mind it was a mistake. So Austin, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Next week's stream. What do we want the topic to be?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Chat have any ideas?
Yeah.
Come on.
Bring it forward.
Chat. I had one that I wanted to do, and I don't remember what it was. I like to have these now so that everybody knows what's going to happen next time. But if you got any suggestions, let us know what you think next week's stream should be. I had one, and I lost it. poo. Maybe what the world would be like if every car had a THX button.
MW asked if we were going to post some pictures or video on that Epson double up, the LS12000 double. I think I will. I think I'll make a video on it, and I'll probably make a thread on it. Maybe Ryan and I can contribute to the thread.
That'd be good.
Because it's not done that often. It's just not something people have played with that much.
So I'm going to say this before I forget on the topic for next week. What if we did something about what people want M-Wave to be next year? Think that's pertinent?
Sure.
Because it's on a lot of people's minds right now, and it's, I think, better to be figured out sooner rather than later. So maybe we talk about that. I think that would be good. Unless somebody has a better idea. That idea may not be very good. It's just
I think it's a good idea.
Right, so we'll plan on that. I will post the schedule for the scheduled stream for next week. The week after that, I will be gone. I will be at CEDIA. Jonathan may be at CEDIA. It'd be cool. It's a cool experience. Like, you see stuff, you meet people. It's a good time. I think you've never been, have you?
I've never been, and what's more, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not really sure it's even appropriate for like a non-vendor to go. It's not. John Q. Public isn't really supposed to go to the event, right? Isn't it kind of a slip-in type thing?
It's not.
I can't get a good read on that as I'm trying to poke around. And as I went to register just to like see what the registration process was like, it's like company name, position in company, obviously talking about audio companies or video or electronic companies, like make up my little company name.
Yeah.
I don't want to do unethical is what I'm saying.
But I don't think you're doing something unethical, because you could look at it as the company of what we're doing here on the streams. I mean, you're a pivotal player, whether you think you are or not, in a lot of people's experiences in providing knowledge and guidance. And just because you don't sell a product doesn't mean you're not a player in the industry, whether you think you are or not. So I think you should not have any type of remorse or second guessing about you going, because I think it would be plenty of content creators go and they don't do anything.
Just what we
kidding. But they're not a vendor and they're not selling anything, so it's I wouldn't worry about it. Don't look too far into it. You do a lot for the industry, and I think it would be beneficial for you.
Oh shucks.
Thanks. Oh shucks. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like that imposter syndrome. Like, you don't realize what you're doing and you think that you're not that person. And man, you talk to a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of people, and like, well, Jonathan, and I saw him do this on AVS and all this. I'm like, man, that man has probably caused way more divorces than he realized that he's done.
I hope not. I sure hope not.
No, but you've provided an ember to somebody's flame more often than you think you have. So I think you should go. Did you guys go to Audio Advice Live? I was there with Mad VR. It was a good time.
Are you getting showed out now? Because you go to shows like, seems like once or twice a month, year round.
No, I don't go that often.
Seems like
and some of the shows that we do are like a small show for a rep firm or something. We're just there as a vendor. This is me putting my Mad VR hat on, helping them and supporting the vendor. It's different when you're in that capacity. It's a lot more like teaching and people learning. And then I'm doing customer-facing shows, dealer-facing shows. Sometimes it's just training. It just depends. But I don't travel nearly as much. I'm maybe traveling at most once a month now, which is still a lot, but not usually for shows. So CD is the next one.
All right.
Anybody else got anything to say? You got anything?
No.
In closing?
Chat's giving us some love, so thanks, fellas. Nick's asking, what's this Restream thing? It's a different thing than the StreamYard. It's just an alternative.
The Restream Dot, I don't know what the Restream Dot is, but it may be if it's chat and you're seeing it come up in chat, it's somebody chatting from a different platform, and it's rebroadcasting that so you can see it, because we're broadcasting to 3 different platforms simultaneously. So we just want to make it easy for people to see. Midbase says, Jonathan definitely inspires me. I almost bought some mini line arrays. Yeah, he has that effect on people.
All these people in the chat, like, Jonathan, you made me spend this much money. Like, come on, no, I don't make anyone spend
They
any
did.
money.
I just give you crap for that all the time. I think it's people are regurgitating.
Right.
So next week we're going to talk about M-Wave, and then the week after we will be at Cedia. It'd be cool if you went to do a live thing from Cedia. That'd be cool. You should think about it. Reach out to Bob.
I
may go.
I'm very much considering it.
Okay.
All right.
Well, guys, it's been a good one. Jonathan, good to see you. I'm glad you made it back without, burning down. That would have been unfortunate. And I'm glad we figured out our voices. We're level matched.
No complaints on that tonight.
No, they did complain at least a couple times.
Oh.
They said I was a little low, so I turned myself up, but maybe it was just somebody being picky. Okay. Well, guys, a pleasure as always. Jonathan.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. Until next time, stay safe out there, and we'll see you next week.
Night, everybody.